Coming to you live today from Clearwater, Florida. Joining us now, Senior Policy Advisor with America First Policies, Curtis Ellis, our good friend. Curtis, great to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here, John.
Curtis, I'm a little upset today, and I want to get your comments on it a little bit. The president appears to be caving on the China tariff policy that he has been talking about, Curtis, for 35 years, that, in my opinion, was at the centerpiece of his historic election in 2016. And now we've got TV Larry Kudlow, we got Steve Mnuchin, and these other Wall Street, Goldman Sachs types running around trying to unravel his great the trade policy that Robert Lighthizer put together with Peter Navarro on China with these 1,300 strategic products, aluminum and steel, is brilliant. It's brilliantly done. It's going to make a huge impact. Now it seems to be unraveling.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. China is out to control the world. They have, I don't know how to put this in strong enough terms. We are being cuckolded. The cuckold is a bird that comes into the nest, and then it pushes out the real bird that lives there. The cuckold is an imposter bird that comes into a nest, pretends to live there, and then pushes out the bird that built the nest. And that is what is happening. The United States built this international rules-based system. The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the United Nations, the whole scheme of globalization, the World Trade Organization that was supposed to regulate activity between countries. And then we said, we're going to invite China into this rules-based order, and they're going to become civilized like us, and they're going to play along inside the order. Well, that didn't happen. They got inside the system, and then they took it over. They violated all the rules. They bent the rules and violated the rules. The weasels and the weasels in the World Trade Organization in Geneva didn't have the backbone to stand up to China when they cheated, and they let China get away with it. Now China is saying globalization we are the defenders of globalization. We are the defenders of free trade. That's what they're saying about China.
Right.
And they're letting but they've turned this phony free trade into a way for them to bankrupt American industries, take over strategic industries, everything from steel and aluminum to LED lighting to high-tech computers to artificial intelligence and robotics. They're going to control all of these industries. And they're going to control the basic industries, too. Already you see in Brazil that they own farms, they own the railroads and the ports for shipping the soybeans that they grow on the farms. They own the companies that trade the grain. So, and the president for life, Chairman Xi Jinping, he's like Chairman Mao over there, the dictator of China, he's laid out the plan. He says, our plan is to replace the 300-year-old system of Western governance. Well, you go back and you look at what happened 300 years ago. 300 years ago, the Treaty of Westphalia, I know this sounds like, abstruse weirdo history. 300 years ago, a treaty was written which established sovereign nations as the basic order of the world. Mm-hmm. That world relations would be conducted by sovereign nations, looking out for their interests, looking out for the interests of their citizens. Well, China wants to replace that. And what would they replace it with? Where Xi Jinping is ruler of the global economy. So we would all be dancing to the tune that China is playing. Now, that is a very frightening future. And I tell you what, selling a few more thousand tons of sorghum and soybeans to China ain't going to stop that future from happening. That's what I have to say to Senator Grassley and Senator Thune and Senator Pat Roberts from Kansas and all these other people who are looking at their narrow sectional interest. You're part of the United States of America. You got to be thinking about what's good for this country, for all of its 300 million people. And if you want to just be the president or the senator of a farm state, a farm colony, essentially a farm colony of China, go ahead and secede from the United States of America, quit your job in the U.S. Senate, and go to work someplace else. You've got to be, in addition to looking out for the interests and the concerns of your constituents, the people who live in your state, they're also citizens of the United States. And you've got to show some leadership and look out for their interests as citizens of the United States as well as residents of Kansas or Nebraska or Iowa. And if you think their future, these farmers, if you think their future is going to be bright and their kids and their grandkids' future is going to be bright when China and the Communist Party of China is calling the shots, you need to think again. Because I tell you what, when China calls the shots, these people are racists and they're nationalists. And the Chinese will be first in line for any decent job. And the American kids, no matter how bright they are, will be at the end of the line. And there's 1.5 billion Chinese in line in front of them.
Well, Curtis, that's what they're aiming for, and everybody knows it. And the president knew this 30 years ago. He's been railing about this since the 1980s. You know, he stood there with us, Curtis, you and I, when we fought NAFTA, when we fought the Korean trade deal, one after the other. The only businessman that we had on our side for a very long time, 3.5 decades, was Donald Trump. He got it right. Curtis, this is how he got elected president. This is why I'm so upset today. And, you know, the president has this thing. He's still trying to run this government like he did Trump Tower, where you get, 5 of the best people with experience in a room and you debate on what kind of a window frame to buy for your hotel in Scotland, and they get the best window frame. You can't run the government this way. You simply can't do it. You have to surround yourself with people that are ideologically in alignment with your vision of America first. And Steve Mnuchin is not. TV Larry Kudlow is not. Many of these other people he has, they agree with him on some things, don't agree with him on others. But the pressure they have put on this president to bear from Goldman Sachs, from Wall Street, from the gangster banksters, from Lower Manhattan, all they care about, Curtis, is next quarter's profits and what their bonus is going to be in 2018. Is it going to be $1 million or $2.5 million? That's all they care about. They don't care about the American worker or factories or Buffalo or Pennsylvania or Ohio or Indiana. They could care less about it. They don't even care about the farmers and soybeans. That's just a political ploy to pressure the president. Oh, if we have these tariffs, we're going to lose the midterms. That's like you said. What, Deb Fish is going to get beat in Nebraska? This whole thing is such crap and foisted on the president. Now we've got North Korea and the Singapore thing coming up, and these same people saying, well, if you get the Chinese mad, they're not going to do this or they're going to do that. You know what? We can't be governing by worrying about what the Chinese think. They've been screwing us for 50 years. So the president, Curtis, had it right. If you look at the 1,300 products he put those tariffs on, that was brilliantly done by Bob Lighthizer and by Peter Navarro. Now it's about to get unraveled. How do we stop it?
Well, by doing exactly what you're doing, sounding the alarm. You've got to you got to make it clear in no uncertain terms what's at stake here. look, what you were saying about how the president, how the White House runs, we've seen before that all of the internal debates that take place in the White House are actually taking place in the media. They're not taking place internally. Everybody leaks. They're all putting out their position outside through the media, and we still haven't heard the president speak on this yet. We've heard Mnuchin speak. We've heard other leaks, anonymous sources, senior officials say, sources say. Until the president speaks, it's not done yet. And we've seen this on other issues, other times, that there's this constant, this place is transparent as a fishbowl and leaky as a sieve. And so all the internal policy debates that in previous White Houses took place behind closed doors, and then the White House would come out with the final statement that was the authoritative position. That's not what's happening here. And so it's very important that the president hears in no uncertain terms what's at stake here and what's going on. And you're right. This is the trade issue, the China stuff this is what won him the election. It was trade and it was immigration. Those are the two issues, and not necessarily, probably I would say trade was number one. This is why people who understood why they were out of work, why they got screwed. They got screwed by China. They got screwed by outsourcing. They got screwed by the banksters sending their jobs to China, and no one ever talked about that until Donald Trump came along. And these are the people who came out of the hills, came out of the woodwork to vote for the first time in 40 years and elected this guy. It wasn't by accident that the industrial Midwestern states and Pennsylvania went for Donald Trump, and it wasn't because he said he was going to repeal Obamacare. Every single Republican since 2010 said they were going to repeal Obamacare, and actually we saw what happened when they had the chance to do it. They didn't do it because everybody knew that politicians are phony and lie. So they voted for the non-politician who talked about the one issue they care about. And I tell you, the stakes could not be higher here. China is playing for time. They've used North Korea as an excuse, and every administration has been gulled by this. Well, we need China's cooperation. They have influence on North Korea, so we better not get tough with them, even though we know they're stealing the house from around us, because we need their help on North Korea. Who cares about North Korea? North Korea, if North Korea had a nuclear weapon and had even an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of delivering it to New York City, why is North Korea any different than Russia? For 50 years, Russia had missiles and nuclear warheads. And you know what? Russia knew that if they dared to use one of them, we would turn Russia into a smoking ruin, the entire nation. How is North Korea any different than that? How is North Korea, a country that's the size of maybe, Kansas or Texas at best? We have enough nuclear weapons in our arsenal that if Little Rocket Man ever launched his rocket against the United States, he couldn't climb into a hole deep enough to escape incineration. It's called deterrence.
Well, Curtis, you're right. I mean, this has been going on forever. The Russians have missiles. The Chinese have missiles that could hit New York City.
And everybody knows you can't use them. This is the strangest weapon ever developed.
This is all of a sudden, this is, and all of a sudden now the Chinese are leveraging North Korea just like they've always done in order to get their way with us over trade. We're with Curtis Ellis. He's a senior policy advisor with America First Policies. He was on the transition team. He was on the Trump campaign with me from the very beginning. And he was also an executive in the Department of Labor. Curtis, I'm going to take a phone call, if you will. George in Chesterfield. George in Chesterfield, you're on the air with John Fredericks and Curtis Ellis. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
It looks to me it looks to me like you're jumping the gun. You don't have the final product yet, and you're bashing the president left and right. I mean, if everything is going to be on an equal playing field, you would still be against it? I don't get this.
I couldn't quite hear him. What did he say?
Well, I think what George is saying is that the president hasn't made the decision and we're bashing him. We're not bashing the president. We're bashing the decision to abandon the China tariff trade policy, which the president put in place, which was brilliantly done and perfectly executed. I mean, it was a perfect execution. And so why are we doing this on the radio? So we can get to the White House.
Now, and you don't have the final product yet, right?
Right, that's right. We're trying to influence, right, those that are listening to us.
That's right. But
we're weighing in on the negotiation.
Until we hear President Trump say something, we don't know what the final product is.
Allow the process to work. I know you want your influence, your voices to be heard, which is good, but let the final product come out before you start bashing the president and everybody around him.
We're not bashing the president. Stop with the bashing the president, okay? There's no bigger supporters than this president than Curtis and Ellis and I. We've been with him for 30 years. So don't talk to me about bashing the president, George. But you have to tell the truth. I mean, you just can't sit in a bubble and go on the air every day like some of these other people I compete with and read the talking points and just say the world is great, all right? He had a great trade policy with China. It's perfectly executed. Now he's getting talked out of it by Steve Mnuchin and TV Larry, who are symbols of Goldman Sachs and Wall Street. And so we're hoping those that have influence in the White House are listening to us because we speak for the people. This is about bashing the president. This is about bashing people around him, influencing him to abandon one of the best things he's done, that he's worked on for 3.5 decades. That's what it's about. That's why we're here. Makes sense, George? Love you, man. Gotta go. Curtis Ellis, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.